Let's talk science. Stick around to the end, especially if you're a subscriber, so I can tell you about some different moves we're making on the channel and the schedule of stuff. But this is the concise combat analysis, so we're looking at the first round. Let's get into it right now. One of the things that immediately stands out about Bam when you're watching him is that in and out movement, his movement in general, but when he's working offensively and defensively, a lot of times it's range control, that first line of defense, which we'll talk more about. He backs out of the way for defense and clears space and then steps back in for offense. And that combo is kind of similar. That little sequence is kind of similar to Crawford versus Spence, except for it was a 2-1 and not a 1-2, which is what Bam threw. One thing just about all great fighters have in common is not just the quantity of feints, but the quality of feints and the reasoning behind them, for deception, for setups, for reads. And we're about to see this feint right here pay dividends. And the reason why this feint is so effective, this little kind of like step in feint, is because a lot of his offense comes behind that motion. A lot of his offense starts with that motion. And so it serves as a foundation for disguising everything he does and setting up everything he does. And especially with his speed, it's a dangerous combination because he can just stand in front of you. He does that little step, he drops the shoulder, he closes the distance, and he lands on you, and you don't even get to react to it in time because he's setting it up the whole time with that feint constantly. And we were talking about lines of defense or layers of defense. The first line of defense is distancing. He just barely sits at the edge of range, lets his opponent fall in with the jab and tries to counter over top with the hook. And then notice that uppercut that he throws right there. That's going to be very important at the end of the fight. If you already watched the fight, then you know that that uppercut is very important. And this is why I like looking at first rounds, and this concise combat analysis is covering the first round, because the first round almost always gives signals. It gives foreshadowing for how the rest of the fight is going to look. As I was watching him fight, and I've seen him fight before, but never in analysis mode like how I did for this particular fight, I was kind of like shocked because he's a damn good fighter. We're talking about the eye test and looking at different fighters and just like how they stand out. He's one of them. So he does this like little level change feint. As he does, he widens his stance. He does this level change feint. He gets a big reaction. Also because he's coming forward, invading Estrada's personal space. So Estrada has to react. And then he jabs. So he's doing a lot of stuff to bring out a reaction from Estrada. That's what he's doing right now. The feint, the step in, him widening his stance. But as he widens his stance, it's like a optical illusion in a sense, because he seems closer than what he is, because his foot is like stepping into your territory, and so you think that he's close, but he can just pull back on that his back leg because his stance is widened. And so it's kind of like an optical illusion, a little distance deception, and he makes his opponent overextend and he can counter over top, although he doesn't land that counter, but he can pull back and still have some more. So he kind of like, it's like bouncing between the legs because they're so widened. Like I said earlier, the first round always foreshadows elements that will be important later on. Step in, 1-2, Bam gets caught by the 1. I think the 2 might slightly graze, but very important shot also. And Estrada is a damn good fighter himself, so there's adaptations on his part. He's not just gonna let Bam jump in without any feints. Bam has to use feints, or this is what's gonna happen. He's gonna get caught coming in. His entries have to be disguised. All right, now fight scientists, bear with me real quick. As I was away on my break, I took time thinking about how I want to make more long form content. And not this video, but the breakdown coming after this concise combat analysis is going to be one of the first where I really expand and do a lot more with my analysis, kind of like how I did Usyk versus Fury, but condensed down into one, which eventually I'm going to do that to that fight anyways. But yeah, I like making things tight and short too, which is why we will still do concise combat analyses and still have videos like 5 minutes and stuff like that. But I want to lean more into the long form content. And probably later in the month, I'm going to re-release an old classic set of videos all together as one. I'm gonna do that for a few different breakdowns, but it's gonna be the Crawford Spence stuff because Crawford has a fight coming up, and obviously we're gonna break that down. That should be fun. But yeah, look forward to the future. Look forward to everything. Keep on the notification bell as always. That is all, fight scientists. I'm out.